If you came across this podcast to hear some analysis of the Democratic presidential debate on Wednesday, I'm sorry to tell you, but you're not going to get it because I honestly, I didn't watch it.
From the highways of America, here's the podcast where we talk politics, a little entertainment, some culture, and this and that from the road to your ears. This is Trend Chat with your host, Brian Bledsoe.
But you will get a continuation of our candidate series, so you will get that. Hi, I'm your host, Brian Bledsoe, and this is Trend Chat. And if you want to connect with us, we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, TikTok is all the same name at Trend Chat 24/7. You're hearing us either on trendchat247.com or one of the, I guess, most popular podcast outlets. So I appreciate you listening in. I really do. Matter of fact, I will also want to put out, if you want to message us, you go to, well, you can send us a message on any of the social media, but also we have our email, which is trendchat247@gmail.com. You can leave us a email there as well. So again, appreciate everyone listening. And like I said, we're going to continue with our candidate series. Matter of fact, there's this one and one more. Unless something happens, or unless someone else comes along that wants to be interviewed. Speaking of these candidates in Texas, and I don't know where else, but early voting has started. It started on Tuesday, the 18th. So if you want to get a head start on voting, you can head over to, I will say, the one website I can think of that will help if you need some information on at least where your polling locations and all that will be votetexas.gov. votetexas.gov, and that seems to be a pretty good resource. So, but yeah, like I said, early voting has started. So with that, I have 2 more episodes. So in saying that, that's why I'm looking to do the next one on Tuesday, and instead of the next Thursday, because I want to get this out as a bit sooner than within the early voting window. I mean, you never know. Someone could be listening to this particular podcast and may, I don't know, give them more information on the candidate, and they, choose to vote for them or whatever. So I want to make sure I give them that opportunity, at least, by putting the next one, which will be on next Tuesday, with a Tuesday coming up. So with that, this one's probably not going to be nearly as long. Mainly because I just want to get to the interview, and also just have a couple of things. One I've already mentioned about the early voting, and also before we get into our interview in this episode, which is with Jason Mrochek, and you're hearing the interview because I was trying to make sure I try to say his name right, and also if I didn't, for him to correct me, so you'll know how to say it right and know who he is. And so we'll have the interview with him later up, coming up. I said later up. I just thought about that. I was thinking later on and coming up. I put 2 together, said later up. But yeah. So I also want to talk about this. I guess I guess it's kind of a story that kind of went on the radar. I mean, I did hear about it. So, but about the Boy Scouts, which has filed for bankruptcy, don't really have a lot to speak about it, but it was just a coincidence as far as how this even came about. So before we get to that, let's hear a word from our friends at the Founding Project.
This is Trend Chat.
Hello to fans of Trend Chat and Brian Bledsoe. The Founding Project, an education nonprofit dedicated to civics, invites you to visit our brand new website. Visit us at thefoundingproject.com. Be a part of the civics movement with the Founding Project. The Founding Project is a 501c3 education nonprofit. Please join us today.
Hey everyone, this is Lucia Scaramacchia and you are listening to Trend Chat.
So last week when I was in Alabama, driving through Alabama actually, and well, before I get any further into this, we are broadcasting from Kansas. No, I've forgotten where I'm at. I am in Oklahoma. I am in the what you call it, the Panhandle of Oklahoma. On my way to El Paso tomorrow. So, but yeah. Last week I was driving through Alabama on my way to Kentucky to deliver somewhere, and I bring this up because I was getting fuel, and right beside me was a truck with a big trailer on it, like a pickup truck, not like the truck that I drive, but this truck had a trailer on it, and it had a wrap around it. For the Boy Scouts, for that particular troop, and I guess in that area, and this was a weekend, so I'm guessing they were going on some camping trip. I don't know. I didn't ask about that part, but anyway, I saw the guy. He was out there, pumping gas and whatnot. And anyway, I was asking them where they were headed, and he was saying to I forgot where. He might have said it then that they were going on a camping trip. I just might have forgotten that part. But anyway, I was by seeing that trailer and seeing just the Boy Scouts, because they was all in the uniforms, because also the actual Boy Scouts were there too, and I was telling him that it's a lot from what I learned from the Boy Scouts I have used to this day. And one of the things, especially being a truck driver, is knowing my bearings, kind of knowing where I'm at, having the confidence in knowing where north is, because all you got to do is, look at the sun and then you know which way is north, and knowing how to use the compass and stuff like that. And as a truck driver, that is, very helpful. Especially because even though we all have GPS, I mean, you have GPS on your phone and all that in your car, and we have GPS in our trucks, but sometimes it doesn't work, or sometimes it's it directs you to the wrong place, and you may be all in the middle somewhere and don't know which way to go because the GPS is wrong. Or you don't have any, coverage. You don't have a cell signal, so it's not going to connect to give you directions, stuff like that. So if you have a general idea as far as where you need to go, because being a truck driver, if I'm on the road and, say for instance, my GPS doesn't work, and I know I need to be going north or need to be going east or west, I know how to at least go in the general direction. And that's all from stuff that I learned from the Boy Scouts. All this being said, because it was such a coincidence that I had this conversation with them at the truck stop, and like 2 days later, then the news came out that the Boy Scouts are filing for bankruptcy. Now, it's not like they didn't help. They didn't bring this upon themselves, put it away. Because one reason why I would say is that because they have succumbed to, as so many other organizations have, and capitulating to those that basically don't even they just want to destroy, an organization like the Boy Scouts. And so they'll do all sorts of, they'll try to boycott and try to bring up all sorts of anything to try to bring this organization down. Now, don't get me wrong, there's some things that actually happen that need to be addressed. I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about the other things as far as when they wanted them to not refer to themselves as Boy Scouts, or wanting to have girls or transgender in the Boy Scouts and all of that. And I think almost at every turn they just agreed to everything, and from that just built up a steady decline of the Boy Scouts. And I will almost say this is kind of a bit of a I guess you call it a cautionary tale. It's kind of something I saw because I saw something from Steve Dees on Blaze TV a couple of days ago about this, and he was saying the title of the video was Boy Scouts: A Cautionary Tale. But I would think this to be maybe a precursor to Chick-fil-A, with how they're now kind of backtracking on some of their values, and kind of in the same way kind of capitulating towards organizations that frankly just want to destroy them. And I'm not saying it will happen right now, but over time, just like the Boy Scouts, over time, as they keep agreeing and just bowing down to all of this from the left and from Democrats, progressive, or whatever, over time it's going to get to the point to where they're not going to have the support that they normally have from the people like myself, or like any Christians, conservatives, or whatnot. They don't get the support from that side, and they're not going to get support from the left because they're just asking them to do all these things. But then when they do it and they agree, all they're going to say is that's not good enough. That's not good enough. It's never enough. They just keep moving the goalposts, keep moving them, and it is never enough. And then to the point to where now they've totally abandoned all their values, all their principles, to the point that they're not getting support from their core group of people, and now they're just left out to dry. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, I think Chick-fil-A could turn out being this way. They think they may be getting something now, but in the long term, I don't know. It's just something I was thinking about when I'm hearing about the Boy Scouts. Also, when I think about all this capitulation and how these organizations just want to, they have this thought of like, I don't want any trouble, so just leave us alone. Okay, sure, all right. You want transgenders to come in? All right, fine. You want girls to be in the Boy Scouts? All right, sure, fine. Just leave us alone. But it's never enough. They're not going to leave you alone. So you should fight from the beginning. Just said no from the start, and just fight and fight. And because understand where they're coming from. They're not coming from a place that they think they're coming from. They feel like, well, if we agree to this, then maybe they'll just not not be as harsh on us later on. It also kind of reminds me of, especially Republicans in particular, that a lot of them, especially around this time to my primaries, and because a lot of these incumbents, I will say, have this, I don't know, this need to placate the other side. So they tend to want to vote on their issues and vote with the Democrats on some issues just to seem bipartisan, but then when it comes around, when they need help or they want something passed, then Democrats just totally we can't pass that. We can't work with you on that. It's really a one-way street. Whether we're talking about with politics and, politicians or these organizations, all this talk from the left, from Democrats about tolerance and all this, and it's just a one-way street. It's all it is. Because it's nothing, you're not going to get anything in return, really. You're just going to alienate your base and then basically just leave yourself out to dry over time. Unless you just get to the point where you would just totally, like I said before, abandon everything and just say, okay, we're now just going to appease these progressives, the left. We're going to do everything they want us to do. Maybe you'll survive, maybe. But hanging around in the middle is not going to work. So, anyway, I had to get that off because, like I said, I was talking to these Boy Scouts on the weekend, and then all this happened, and so, but yeah, so anyway, all right, we're gonna get to our interview with Jason, and like I said, so we're gonna hear a word from Politichicks, and after that, we'll get straight to our interview. Hello, this is Brian Bledsoe, host of Trend Chat, also contributor at Politichicks.com. Here to tell you about the new book called Politichicks, A Clarion Call to Political Activism, with over 300 pages from contributors like myself, talking about topics such as education, social issues, healthcare, the Second Amendment, and of course, activism. I encourage you all to check it out at Politichicks.com, and is also available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
What's going on, folks? This is Colin Noir, and you're listening to Trend Chat.
And we are very pleased to have one of the candidates running for the U.S. Congress in District 26 in Texas, and wanted to talk to him about his campaign and the issues that he's passionate about. His name is Jason Mrochek. Now, I'm doing this on purpose because I want to make sure you tell me how you say your name. So, Jason Mrochek.
Yeah, that's right. It's Mrochek, and thanks for having me on the program, Brian. I appreciate it.
All right. So, first, for people that don't know, where is District 26?
So, Congressional District 26 includes almost all of Denton County and parts of Tarrant County that include Watauga, Keller, North Richland Hills, a little bit of North Fort Worth, some of South Lake and Westlake as well.
All right, so yeah, that'll be in the DFW area, and
that's right.
Okay, and one thing I wanted to ask is, what inspired you to run?
Well, the day that I graduated from West Point, I took an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. It means as much to me today as it did on the day that I took the oath. And it's the same oath that members of Congress take. But the problem is that with only a handful of exceptions, the majority of our members of Congress are completely falling down on their job to honor their oath, including our incumbent representative here. And so, to me, though I don't wear the uniform anymore, it's unacceptable to me for someone to take the same oath as some of our service members who are doing more than just serving in Congress, right? They're putting themselves in harm's way. And all we're asking our members of Congress to do is to stay within the four corners of a document, and they're not willing to do that. And again, that is unacceptable. And so, for that reason, as well as some others, I've decided to run against the incumbent here in Congressional District 26.
Okay. And from looking at your website, we're just seeing a couple of that shows about principles and issues, and just want to go down through the issues in particular. So, and when it comes to national defense, you have kind of the headline being peace through strength. So what does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's important for us to have a strong national defense because, we can deter a lot of aggression. We can deter a lot of potential adversaries militarily just by being in a position of strength. And so it's important that we continue to fund our military to very high levels so that we are completely ready, both from a force projection, from a numbers perspective, as well as technology, to make sure that we are on the cutting edge of any battle that we may find ourselves in. And so, but peace through strength also means that if we're strong enough, that means that we don't also need to be putting our people in harm's way, right? Projecting that power and that strength, I should say, is as important to making sure that we don't have to enter into conflicts when it is not warranted, right? So every time that something bad happens in the world doesn't mean that we have to send people there. When our national security is at risk, our citizens, our ability to be prosperous as a nation, those are the times when we ought to be using our military in a defensive manner, not in an offensive manner, unless of course it's required through any sort of preemptive strike, because we know somebody who is anticipating a strike against us. And there's a lot of entities out there who have made claims that they wish America were no longer in existence, right? And so we always have to be aware of that.
Okay. Now, I kind of want to go to another issue that you have and kind of ask a question within national defense. So, for budget, you have as a headline, and there being constitutional spending only. And the question I want to ask you is, so when it comes to national defense, how would you want to appropriate money for national defense by doing it constitutionally?
Right. So constitutionally, obviously, we are authorized a standing Navy. And so, again, based on, as I said previously, making sure that our technology in the Navy is top notch, that we are making sure that we're able to project our force globally to protect our interests, our people, and our national security. And then, of course, the Army, we're authorized only to raise funds for up to 2 years in order to maintain an Army, right? And so that's why our budget for the military is done every 2 years. So, based on our current force needs, our current budgeting, that is all we should be looking ahead, unless we have a longer term horizon for any sort of conflicts that we either anticipate or that we think is that we need to extend and to make sure that we are protecting, again, our interests. So constitutionally, those are the ways that we need to spend money for national defense. Of course, there's more, obviously, from air assets and national homeland security, et cetera.
And also, to the point of illegal immigration, that's another issue when it comes to as far as spending goes, and also as far as, but also wanting to, protect our borders. What would you look to do to combat illegal immigration, and on top of that, to go along with the spending as well? How would you want to combat that as well?
Right. So, everything you said so far, these are all constitutionally authorized reasons for spending, tax dollars. So on the immigration front, and as you probably know, I call it an illegal alien invasion because it has been happening for so long, over a long period of time. It's a silent, long-term, mostly non-armed invasion. right? And so there's, probably 5 things that are critical for us to do. The very first one is we have to secure the border. We have to put a physical barrier in place at the southern border. And the reason we have to do that is because it doesn't matter what enforcement actions we take in order to reduce the effects of the illegal alien invasion. We can deport people, but if we don't have a physical barrier that is defended, that is, that we have overwatch over to make sure that no one is trying to defeat our southern barrier, then it doesn't matter, because it'll just be a revolving door for people who want to come back here. So number one is we have to have that physical barrier. The second thing that we need to do is we need to put the fear of God into the employers in the United States to make sure that they are not hiring illegal aliens. So that is one of the biggest magnets that draws a lot of the illegal aliens here, and that is the chance to get and to work in the United States, where wages are way better than they are in their home country. And so it means that we don't just go after the big employers in the big cities for photo ops. We need to go after also the small mom and pops in the small, the not big cities, the rural areas and middle America where there's just mom and pop operations. No employer can think that they are, beneath the radar. Or they have to know that every time that they make a decision, it's a conscious choice that they may be facing severe fines or prison time for the decisions that they're making. The third thing that we need to do, is until the asylum issue came up, there was probably 40% of the illegal aliens in the country were because they were overstaying visas. And so, while we are beginning to put biometric technology in place to track them on their entry and their exit, if they actually abscond while they're here, we have very little enforcement in the interior to track these folks down and get them out. So they basically get a free pass. And anytime you give criminals a free pass, it's just going to invite more of them here. So we have to go after these folks. And that requires some spending of money to increase the resources to do so. The fourth thing we need to do is we need to just absolutely put a stop to any sort of sanctuaries. Amnesties too, but sanctuaries for sure. We can't offer sanctuary to people who are breaking the law. And that means, in many cases, elected officials who are knowingly aiding and abetting these illegal aliens by offering and voting for sanctuary city status or sanctuary jurisdiction status. It is a violation of federal law. Title 8 United States Code 1324, they can go to prison for up to 10 years if they're aiding and abetting somebody that they know has come here illegally and they're encouraging them to stay. And so we need to go after people, including elected officials, who are doing this. And then the final thing that we are already starting to do, number 5, is to clean up some of the asylum loopholes, and some of that's being done. But there are several things that are within the Attorney General's power right now to fix that problem.
Okay. And now another issue that you have that I see on here that I'm a big fan of is talking about it says economy, because the headline you have there is let the free market reign, which is something I am definitely a fan of. Now, I kind of want to combine this with another issue just so we don't have to go through each one, but because when I see healthcare, I also see another one, I also see healthcare as well. And I'm a proponent as far as letting the free market reign when it comes to healthcare. So I just want to bring those two together. So, and for you just to mention, I guess, what it will be your idea for healthcare and also the free market in general.
Yeah, you teed that one up really well. Those two do go together very well because, as you probably know, healthcare and insurance have no business being in our federal legislation or our budget, right? They're nowhere to be found in Article 1, Section 8 of our Constitution, which gives us our enumerated powers. And so, absent any federal involvement, our healthcare system ought to be one that is driven by the free market. And that means getting the government out of the middle. And, your best healthcare and my best healthcare is affected when there's no one between us and our doctors. That means no government. That means, no one's deciding which procedures I can and cannot have or which tests you can or cannot have. And it also means that it should be between my doctor and me to decide what the value for those services are and what I'm willing to pay and what he is willing to work for the money that I'm willing to pay him. The problem right now is that we have an element of price fixing in because the Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services essentially fixed the prices, and so that reduces the competition. It means that there's basically, a set of prices that I'm probably going to pay, and it's not going to vary very much from that, and the competition between doctors is stifled. So getting government out of the middle of all that is a key component. Now, the amount of regulations going on in the healthcare industry is not letting up, and it's doubling down. Right, the incumbent in my district was the author and the sponsor of a bill called MACRA, which basically disincentivizes doctors from taking Medicare patients. So the seniors are the ones that are most affected by some of this regulation, especially MACRA, and it's causing them to either lose their doctors, have to shift to different doctors, reduce the amount of services they're able to get, reduce the amount of time they're able to be seen by doctors because they're now under the regulations of larger conglomerations. And so it's all bad news. Anytime you get government in the middle of that, it causes problems. So for the rest of the economy, obviously it's the same. The less the government has to do with the economy, the better, because we'll figure it out. The laws of supply and demand will take over, and we'll figure it out.
Yeah, and now, I guess one question within healthcare, even though I don't agree that it's healthcare, but even though when we talk about abortion, unfortunately, it is lumped in there, and I just want to ask you as far as, because that's one thing I don't see in particular. So what is your stance as far as the abortion?
Yeah, I generally call it murder instead of abortion because you're taking a live human being and you're ending its life, and you're doing it with prejudice, right? You are choosing to do that. And everywhere else in, our laws, we call that murder, and this is no different. Life begins at conception and it ends at natural death. And if we take positive steps to end somebody's life between that without due process, that is called murder.
I wanted to ask that one in particular, and I also have another one because it's on last issue, at least on going by your website, is about the Second Amendment. I'll just read this right quick because it's short. Shall not be infringed. Words still have meaning, and the Second Amendment is written in plain English. There are no caveats or conditions. Shall not be infringed. Like I said, it's pretty short, and it's sweet, and it's great. And now, so from that, my question is, just by reading that, I'm guessing you're not a fan of the red flag laws.
No, any law that infringes on our right to keep and bear arms without any sort of due process in between is not a law. It's an unconstitutional enactment, and it ought to be repealed. It ought to be refused. It ought to be stood up against. And so I'm glad to see a lot of the so-called Second Amendment sanctuary jurisdictions popping up. And, even if they don't have the weight of law, it's good to see that it's the sense of the people that this is happening. And so I'm hoping to see even more of these happen. But more than just saying that we shall not, assist in any sort of gun confiscations or gun control, I would like to see somebody, a sheriff or a county commission stand up and say, not only that, but we shall direct our law enforcement personnel to actively resist any attempts to enforce gun laws or unconstitutional legislation. There's a big difference between saying, oh, we're not going to participate, but we'll watch it, and, oh, we will stand between our citizens and anybody attempting to enforce unconstitutional enactments.
All right. Well, you know what? I think we can just end right there. I wanted to get through, the issues, and so everyone will know what you stand for. And so if people want to know more about you, whether through website or social media, where would they go?
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, Brian, and anybody who wants to find out more about my campaign, to volunteer, to donate, they can go to jasonfortexas.com. That's Jason, the numeral 4, Texas.com. And we're having a lot of great success, getting a lot of great feedback, and people are ready for a change, and we're going to make it happen.
So thank you for your service, and we hope to have you on again, and hope all the best in the primary.
Well, it was my honor, and I look forward to seeing everybody out at the polls on March 3rd, and we're going to win this thing. So thanks again, Brian.
Hey, this is Antonia Okafor with Empowered, and you are listening to Trend Chat with Brian.
All right, and thanks to Jason for joining us. And again, as I mentioned in the beginning, early voting has started in Texas. So, and that website that I mentioned was votetexas.gov. So if you need some more information as far as polling locations and times and all of that. So, also want to give a shout out to Cultural Life. We really appreciate them being on as a podcast partner as they seek to celebrate the world of fashion, celebrate life through the world of fashion. I kind of got ahead of myself, but yeah, it's great to have a pro-life fashion line out there, because you take your pick, and all the major fashion, Louis Vuittons or whatever like that, all of them, I'm pretty sure all of them are pro-abortion, pro-death of innocent lives. So it's great to have a company like Culture for Life. And if you go to their website, COL, which is Culture Life, COL1972.com, and you put in the code Trend Chat, you get 10% off. So they have all sorts of different shirts and other accessories, and just check them out at COL1972.com and put in the code Trend Chat. You get 10% off. So appreciate having them, and look forward to seeing them at CPAC next week as we make our way to DC for another CPAC. So that's it for this episode. And but before we completely sign off, I guess since we only have one left, I can go ahead and mention who will be on next week, which will be on Tuesday, which we're shooting for. It'll be John Francis, and he is running for the Texas House, and we'll have our interview with him. And that will be the last one, unless something comes up, someone comes along, I guess, that wants to get a last second interview before early voting ends. And so, yeah, thanks for listening. And until next week, we'll chat with you later.